Hello everyone. Winter is coming and I need some place to store firewood. So I decided to build a firewood storage shed, and I watched several YouTube videos and they were very helpful. So I thought I would post my own so others can maybe learn something from what I did. So first thing I had to decide was the size of the shed. I went with a 12 feet wide and 4 feet deep. That seems like a nice size. And another thing I had to decide was the location. I heard that you should have it at least 5 feet away from the house or 20 feet away from the house. I didn't know which one was correct, so I placed mine about 30 feet from my house. So that should be far enough to prevent termite problems. And another thing is I set it up so that it will face south, so you will get a maximum amount of sunlight, and that will help the wood to dry quickly, and also helps with the insect problems as well, hopefully. And I am going to go through each steps of how I built this shed. So here we go. Here is the all-around view of the shed. So this is the front. The side looks like that. And here is the back. And here's the other side. Alright, the first step is the foundation. I decided to use concrete blocks as foundation. Some people use posts and dig holes, but I hate digging holes because I always hit rocks and it's troublesome. So the concrete blocks works well and very easy to do. So I have 8-inch by 16-inch and 4 feet tall. This is the block that the frame sits on, and to adjust the height I put a couple of more blocks. This one's actually 8-inch high hollow block, and this is solid 4-inch. But yeah, so depending on the slope of the location, you have to put 1 or 2 blocks, and to adjust the height I had to kind of shovel dirt a little bit to make everything level and straight. I used a big level to do that. And another thing to make sure you do is to measure the diagonal distance. So distance from here to this point, and also distance from here to this side should be equivalent to make sure it's perfectly the perpendicular and rectangle. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the front and another 4 in the back, so total of 8 concrete block supports. The next step is to put the floor frame. I use 2x6. Some people use 2x4, but 2x6 seems better because the wood is heavy, so I wanted to make sure it can hold all the weight. It's better safe than sorry. So, and I have 12 feet long 2x6. I didn't cut any, I just used as is. And I have 1 here, and then 1 here, 1 here, and 1 on the other end. So there are 4 sideway ones. And then on the end I have another 2x6. I cut it to about a little bit less than 4 feet. That way I can use 2 for just from the 8-foot board, and I just screw maybe 3 screws for each board. And another thing I did is well, first of all, I set it up so that all of these boards will sit on the concrete, so it's close to the edge, and then the other side of the concrete block is where this board sits. So this one is sitting on the concrete block. Same thing for this one, that one, so, and same thing for the middle concrete blocks. All of the sideway board sits on the concrete blocks. And another thing I did is I put a scrap wood here, and then I screwed it into the concrete using the masonry screw. And from this side, I screwed the board onto this scrap piece. So what it does is it connects the floor frame to the concrete blocks. So I did that for all 8 of the concrete blocks. And another thing I did is to put a stake. So this one goes into the ground for about, I don't know, 1.5 feet or so. And then I screwed it in from this way, a couple of screws into the floor frame. So my hope was that this way the floor won't sink into the ground over time. So hopefully this will help. The next step is to set up the side posts. I used 2 2x4, so this is 1 2x4 and this is another 2x4. Screw them together, and then for the outer post, it sits on the floor frame, and the inner post sits on the concrete block. And then at the top, the inner posts are a little bit higher by the width of the header board. The header board sits on this outer post, which sits on the floor frame, which sits on the concrete block. So I feel like this is very strong. And so that's the same thing for all of the 8 posts. So 4 posts in the front, and then another 4 posts in the back. But for the corner posts, I put another 2x4 perpendicular to the other 2 posts. So I was hoping this will give additional stability, and just screw them from this way like that. So first I just put this one and then screw them like that, and then I put the outer post. And then the height of the back post, since I'm 5 feet and 10 inches, so the height of the back post is exactly that. And then front is about a foot taller than that. So that will give 4 feet this way and then 1 foot up. So that should be a decent slope for the roof. And another thing I did is I put this diagonal. So 1 on the side, 1 on the left back, 1 on the right back, and 1 on the right side. And I just, I had a pocket hole jig, so I just made 2 holes here and then screw it onto this board. So that's the side frame. Yeah, and then for the side frame, make sure first I picked maybe I picked one of the middle one to be the base. So I used the level and make sure it's perfectly vertical, and then from that I measure the distance at the bottom and at the top to decide the exact location of this post. And once I got it where I want it, I temporarily placed another wood. So I used the deck board. So I just had to use one of those those board and then just screw it onto the post to keep them in place. And then again I measured distance from there to there, and then screw in the board. And then same thing for this one, and same thing for the side one. Just did it one by one to keep everything in place. So so it was a little bit tricky, but it's perfectly doable. All right, the next step is to put the floor, and I use a regular deck board. I think this is like 5.5 inch or so, and I have about 1 inch of gap between each boards. Started from this end, and wherever there are posts I had to cut notch, of course, with a jigsaw. And so I just screw them in here, 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 and here, here, all the way to this side. And the very last piece I had to, you know, cut it to the right size, of course. But the floor was very straightforward. The next step is the wall. So for the side wall, I have 1.5 inch gap, exact same type of board that I use for the floor. And so starting from the floor, 1.5 inch up is where I started, and then, you know, after that 1.5 inch gap, and all the way up to about 5 feet tall. So I can stack wood up to about 5 feet tall. So it seems like a nice size. And for the back, I used a 12 feet long deck board. So I didn't cut or anything like that. So I just centered them and then screw them onto the posts. So exact location for the side wall and then back wall, so they align. So the wall was very, very straightforward. Yeah, next step is to put up the rafter and the header board. And for the header board, on the left side it sticks out about 1 foot, and same thing for the right side. And I used 2 pieces connected together by a scrap wood piece. You can see the screws, and then from the back as well. If you have 16-foot long one, you can use the one piece, but 16-footers are hard to work with. So, and it's the same thing for the back. It's connected, but actually header is this one. It's connected with a scrap wood. And for the rafter, I start with the very end, like left side. And about every 2 feet, I have a rafter, and it ends on the right edge. So I have to adjust the distance, so it's from 2 feet to very close to 2 feet, so that the very end will align with the end of this side. And to secure the rafter, I use the rafter ties that looks like this for the middle rafters. But for the very end, since there's no place to screw on the left side, I use the half rafter tie. And same thing, well, on the left side of the shed, and they only sell the like a one side half rafter tie. So for this one I had to put the rafter tie from this end, but that should be fine. And the same thing for the back. And then I went ahead and put a fascia board, which is here, and use 2 pieces connected together with a scrap wood. Fascia board is structurally not really necessary, but I think it makes everything looks nicer. Same thing for the front. The next step was to put the purl in. So I used 2x4, and I used 2 pieces, and it's meets in the middle. I didn't connect these two pieces because I didn't feel it necessary, because purling is just skewered to the rafter and then it's just holding the roof, so I didn't see the need to connect these two. And then on the end, I have vertical or front to back another 2x4s aligned with the end rafter. And then the spacing was about, you start with the very back, and then every 2 feet I have purling like that. Next step is to put the drip edge. Again, it's probably not necessary, but I think it makes it looks nicer. Drip edge is very cheap. So it goes around the purlin, and then wherever it overlaps, I overlap about 1 or 2 inches. And then for the edge, you can do it 2 ways. One is, 2 pieces meet together at the end, or you can make a cut and then bend the piece 90 degrees to go around the corner. I think this one looks nicer, but I think either one should be fine. And I use like a regular roof nail every 6 inches or so to skewer the drip edge onto the purlin. Alright, for the roof, I have another building, the barn, which has the metal roof. So I picked the same color. So this one's called charcoal gray. I got it from 84 Lumber. And so for the very end, you're supposed to put 2 screws, and these screws came with the roof, so it matches the color. And so everywhere there's a purling, so there's a 4 purlins going sideways. So everywhere there's a purling, you use the screws. So 2, 2, 2, 2, and then right here there's nothing to attach to, so I couldn't put screw here. But for the bottom row, there's a ridge and a valley. So for each valley, put 2 screws, and then 2 screws, 2 screws all the way. And then for the top row, 2 screws all the way. But for the middle 2 rows, you start with the 2 screws, but then you just need 1 screw, 1 screw, 1 screw, and then the new sheet starts. So this is 3 feet sheet, so this is where the new sheet starts. And as you can see, there's a side that has this little lip, and the side that doesn't have the lip. The side with the lip should go under, is how you're supposed to do it. And another thing people told me you have to think about is the direction of the wind. You want the wind to blow from this way to this way. If the wind blows this way, then eventually this is going to lift up this piece up, and the roof might come off. So that might take years, but something to think about. And so once the new sheet starts, so you put 2 screws, but you go back to 1 screw, 1 screw, 1 screw, and the new sheet starts, so 2 screw, 1 screw, 1 screw, and all the way. And for the overhang, on the side I have about 3 inches of overhang. On the back and the front I have about 4.5 inches of overhang. And when I ordered it 3 feet by 7 feet. So I didn't have to cut the front or the back. And when you align the roof, your building won't be perfectly rectangle. So sometimes where you overlap, you can see a little bit. It's not perfectly aligned, but nobody's gonna notice it, so don't worry about it too much. And for this end, of course I have to cut the metal. I used a tin snip, cut it straight this way. And I was a little bit worried that the way I cut, maybe rust might develop eventually. So what I did is I sprayed enamel clear spray onto a plastic cup, and I used a brush to kind of brush the edge of the metal. So hopefully that will discourage rust development. Oh yeah, so that's it. That's the final step. So we cut down the tree in front of my house, and we borrowed a log splitter. Man, this thing is so awesome. I started with a maul, but it wasn't doing it, so this was 100 times better. So this is the storage shed with lots of wood. So it seems to be holding up very well. So it's a lot of wood for us to use. So this is great. So I hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully learned something from this. So good luck with your project. Thanks.